Hi guys, it's episode 19 of ParkGolf TV. This week answering your questions about golf. I'm Steve and this is Luke. Obviously you know us, you've seen the videos before. And I'm here at the golf range in Trefnant and answering your questions about improving your golf. So we've had a few in this week, and what are the main topics this week? Do you remember?
A lot of people asking about short game tips, which is nice. It's not always about the driver.
Yeah.
Putting, a few basics setup wise. So we've picked a couple out. One of them's pitching.
Yeah. So.
The one is somebody who's struggling to keep the ball low. So isn't it too high, losing a bit of distance.
And we're also talking about ball positioning.
Yeah. Again, it's nice to have some questions on the important stuff, not just how to fit the driver further, which is the most common question you generally get asked.
Okay, let's get into the first one.
Andy McKelvey says, how about something on putting and chipping? Mike Ripley also says, how about something on pitching?
We'll leave the putting to another video. We'll look at pitching today to answer Andy and Mike. So a simple way to improve our pitching. First of all, I'm just going to talk you through the setup and what we're looking for when we set to a pitch. Again, depending on the length of the pitch shot, we should have our weight a bit more on our left side. How we would a chip. The further that pitch gets, the less lean and weight we have on the left side. Ball position wise, for your stock kind of pitch shot, it should be middle of your stance. Again, obviously we're going to change the flights a little bit, that varies, but for your standard pitch shot, we want our ball position in the middle of our stance. We want quite a narrow stance. Again, that will change depending on length of shot and length of goal swing. So obviously if I'm hitting quite a short pitch, I'll have quite a narrow stance. Again, we narrow up our stance and get a bit closer to the ball because it helps automatically then restrict our swing. So again, we don't want to be hitting a pitch from a full setup position because again, we're having to manipulate the club a lot more then. So always think for your standard pitch shots, ball in the middle, weight a little bit more on our left side. So again, if I'm hitting quite as this, I've got set up a 56-yard pitch. So my setup for that one would be ball in the middle, with the stance a little bit quite narrow, and then my weight would be left side. Again, if I come down to a bit of a shorter pitch, I've reduced my width of stance, I'll have a little bit more of a lean. Obviously, I was going for a longer pitch, a bit wider stance, give myself a bit more freedom to swing. But again, ball position is always generally staying in the middle of my stance. Then one of the best ways to improve pitching is learning a bit more distance control and making the shot a lot more simple to judge, make your thought process over the ball a little bit more simple. So that relates down to the clock routine. So it's something you have to do a little bit of practice with to kind of get a feel for your distances. So what we do is, again, obviously you generally have a couple of different wedges in your golf bag. So I've got a 58 here. What I'd do is I would come down the grip a couple of inches. Again, this is a little feel thing. Don't pay too much attention to that. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hit golf shots from feeling where my left arm, what I feel, goes to 9 o'clock. Again, that doesn't have to be bang on 9. This is my feel, my version of 9 o'clock. So somebody else's might be up here or might be a little bit lower. So I'm hitting golf shots from 9 o'clock with a nice normal sort of rhythm, not trying to hit them hard or soft, and seeing how far they go. So again, I work out my distance. So I'll have then a shot for a 9 o'clock 58. So I know how far that goes. So say I'm on the golf course, I've already worked that out. A 9 o'clock 58 goes to say 50 yards. If I'm there or thereabouts around 50 yards, I know I can just hit a simple 9 o'clock goal swing. It makes the shot a lot more simpler playing it like that than thinking, looking at the flag and trying to get a feel for the distance. If I know my 9 o'clock can't go past a certain distance, then again it makes the shot more simple. So we have 9 o'clock, then I do the same for 11 o'clock. Again, you can have different versions yourself. You can do 8, 10, whatever. You just have those feels, you build them in, you hit the ball from 11 o'clock, again work out your yardage. So again, just makes the game and pitching a lot more simple. Going up to a pitch shot, thinking, right, all I'm doing here is a 9 o'clock shot. Again, it makes the shot a lot more simple.
What have you got in your bag then, as far as
wedges wise? Yeah. I carry a 52 and a 56. Sorry, that's a lie. I carry a 52 and a 58.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there certain recommendations you'd go for as to what loft?
Again, it's personal preference. You'll always tend to go. Most people go 50, 54, 58, or some go 52, 56, 58, 60. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, with pitching wedges getting stronger, and some, well, I mean, who bothers carrying a sandwich anymore? It's all about, seems to be after pitching wedge, and then
you'll have a few wedges. Again, it all depends on, you know, personal preference. As long as you've got something like a 58 or 60, you know, you're pretty much covered with most shots in and around the green, wedges wise. But it is nice to have a little gap wedge, something like a 50 or 52, because as Steve said there, pitching wedges are now generally sort of 45, 46. So you don't want a big gap between that and your next wedge.
Okay, so I hope that's answered your questions, Andy and Mike, and good luck with the chipping. No? Right, talking about ball position in that one, we've got a question from Paul Clayton next.
Straight to the point from Paul Clayton. He'd like to see something on ball position and stance width.
Okay, so let's talk through ball position first. Again, ball position can vary depending on the type of shot, but let's just say everything's a full shot now. So the furthest back you want to go for a full shot would be your pitching wedge, which would be bang in the middle of your stance. And then from there, obviously the ball creeps forward throughout the set. There's no big jump in between clubs. Obviously if I'm going from wedge to drive there is, but again the ball just creeps slowly forward. So as we move back, hopefully you can see the ball on camera. So I'd say furthest back we go on a full shot, middle of our stance for our pitching wedge, and then hopefully you can start seeing, if I go through the bag now, so this is me with a pitching wedge, I'm going to work up towards a driver. So pitching wedge, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 iron, 4 iron, 3, to say a hybrid, then go to a 3-wood, which is just inside the heel, then I work up to a driver, which is opposite my left heel. Again, we can go just a fraction further if you would like with your driver, but that's, as I say, you'll see then when I was doing that, that I was only shuffling small amounts. It's not as if we have a pitching wedge in the middle, then we have our 9, a good ball further forward. It's
about half an inch between clubs.
Yeah, it's a very small amount in between the two. But again, you should practice ball position. Every time you go to the range, you should always put a club down in your stance here. It's opposite the ball. So when you look down, you know exactly where that ball is in your stance. So you get used to practicing good ball position. So when you're on the golf course, you're more than likely to set in that position because you've been practicing the right way. Yeah, so again, if I wasn't looking at that club and I was imagining myself hitting a 7 iron, again, I'll shuffle just ahead of centre every time because I'm used to it being there.
So what about stance then? Is that always shoulders?
With a stance, again, that changes very fractionally as we go up. So again, my pitching wedge would be here. Obviously, you can see I'm quite inside my shoulders. We work up to sort of shoulder width apart. But again, if I go through the bag, so this would me be hitting a pitching wedge. As I work up, you can see I'm just shuffling slightly fractionally wider per club as I go up all the way to the driver. You'll see when I end up with a driver, I'm probably there just about shoulder width apart.
A bit more planted.
Yeah, again, because I've got a longer club, gives me a bit more of a solid base to hit from. Again, your width of stance changes, just like your ball position just, again, fractionally gets wider per club.
Chris Dillon says, I hit the ball straight, but I hit it high, so I think I lose distance because of this. Any suggestions would help.
So what would you say about, well, to help Chris then?
Help Chris with his ball flights. Filming himself would be the first point. I'm going to mention or show a couple of common flaws why people hit the ball higher. Obviously, the main reason is that impact. Obviously, we've got a lot of loft on that club face. That's quite simply, you know, the reason why it's going high. We need to get. So if you filmed yourself from the side, I'm sure you'd be somewhere similar to this impact position. The club head's overtaking my hands as they're coming through the golf ball. The ideal impact position, especially with an iron, would be here. This is kind of what we'd be looking for. An ideal, my hands have led the way. I can control the loft that I'm putting on the impact a lot easier. I keep the loft off that club face a lot easier. Or you can see the weights on my left side. My hands are leading the way. So that's what we're looking to try and get for. So again, do you finish every shot on your right side, leaning behind it? Do you finish them up here on your left side? That's a big key to look for. Another reason is when people take the club back, they get the club wide open. So obviously, again, open the club face a huge amount. So again, as they come back to impact, it's a struggle for them to square that face. Another common one would be a very weak right hand. So again, if my right hand's on top of the club, which you can hopefully see there, I can't release the club face through the ball, so I can't square it up. And again, that's always going to produce a lot of loft at impact. So there's a couple of small sort of keys there. I should imagine the main one that he's staying on his right side, though, and being behind, he'll find himself, you know, tucked in behind the ball a bit more. I say we're looking to try and get lower there. And again, if you want to learn to get the ball lower, start off hitting pitches until you can hit a pitching wedge literally a couple of feet off the ground. So again, it's much easier to learn the technique doing a swing like this than trying to put it into a full swing. Because trust me, once you can hit a pitching wedge, because you can learn to hit a pitching wedge literally a foot off the ground. Only I'm talking about a 20-yard shot, 20 to 30-yard shot. But once you learn the skill level with your wedge, it's then just transfer it into a slightly longer swing. Always start small and work out to things. Don't try and learn the technique, as in trying to get to this position, on a full swing. Start off, even let's say on small swings, get used to that, then build up from there. It's all about developing your skill level. Equipment. Again, if you're sort of obviously playing the wrong equipment, it's not ideal, but...
When we see the numbers on the sim, you see different RPMs between ball flight.
Yeah.
Is it going to be noticeable, or would you only, like...
No, definitely, again, if he's hitting clubs that are putting far too much backspin on, obviously they're going to climb up, going to be quite a weak flight. You know, that's definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah, so it's looks like it could be a few things then, Chris, but...
There's no quick fixes, but basically you have to remember that you're putting too much loft on at impact.
But it's a nice problem to have. You're hitting it straight after all, so that's what a lot of people are after.
Yep, straight's one of the hardest shots in golf.
Yeah, so I mean, if next time you're in, just give Luke a shout and we'll try and get you sorted out there. So that's a few questions answered this week. Hopefully it's helped you all out. If there's anybody else who'd like to get in touch, leave us some questions and we'll get them answered for you and do the best we can to improve your game. So we've got done for this week?
Yep.
Okay. As I say, get in touch with anything else you want to ask us and we shall see you next week.